called her my wife as a joke, didn't expect the beautiful CEO to take it seriously and say, "Be my husband, I agree." One careless joke at a corporate lunch sent Adrian Blake, a 32-year-old single father, into a situation he never saw coming. Just trying to dodge an awkward question from a client, he casually called his young boss, Elena Voss, my wife. The table laughed, but Elena didn't laugh. She blushed, then whispered, "I wouldn't mind that." And from that moment, Adrian's life, so carefully controlled, so safe, began tilting in a direction he could no longer steer. Don't miss this emotional story. Hit like, comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels and stay until the very end. Sets. Adrian Blake had learned long ago that survival wasn't about winning. It was about showing up, keeping your head down, and making it to the end of the day without everything falling apart. And most days he managed. The alarm went off at 5:45, the same as always. Adrian's hand shot out from under the covers, slapping at the phone on the nightstand until the sound stopped. He lay there for a moment in the dark, listening to the radiator clank and hiss in the corner, feeling the weight of another day settling onto his shoulders before he'd even opened his eyes. Then he heard it, the soft patter of small feet in the hallway. He sat up just as his bedroom door creaked open. Lily stood in the doorway, backlit by the dim glow from the bathroom nightlight, her hair sticking up in every direction, clutching the stuffed elephant she'd had since she was 3. "Morning, Dad." Adrian rubbed his face. "Morning, kiddo. You're up early." "I heard the alarm." "You're supposed to sleep through it." She padded across the room and climbed onto the bed, settling in next to him like she'd done 1,000 times before. "I couldn't." "Bad dream?" "No, just thinking." Adrian looked down at her. "About what?" "About whether dragons are real?" He smiled despite the exhaustion pulling at him. "What do you think?" "I think they used to be real, but they got extinct like dinosaurs." "That's a solid theory. Miss Patterson says they were never real." "Miss Patterson doesn't know everything." Lily grinned, satisfied. Then she looked up at him with those wide, serious eyes that always made his chest tighten. "Are we going to be late today?" "Not if we get moving." "Okay." She slid off the bed and headed toward the door, then paused. "Dad?" "Yeah?" "Can we have pancakes?" Adrian checked the time on his phone. "We don't have time for pancakes." "What about tomorrow?" "Maybe." "You said maybe last week." "Then it's probably still maybe." Lily sighed dramatically and disappeared down the hallway. Adrian stood, stretched, and felt his back pop in 3 places. 32 years old, and his body already sounded like a house settling. He pulled on a t-shirt and sweatpants and made his way to the bathroom, where he brushed his teeth and stared at his reflection in the mirror. He looked tired. Not the kind of tired that came from one bad night, the kind that had been building for years, layering itself into the lines around his eyes and the gray creeping into his hair at the temples. He splashed cold water on his face, ran a hand through his hair, and told himself it was fine. Everything was fine. By the time he made it to the kitchen, Lily was already at the table, swinging her legs and coloring in a notebook. The apartment was small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that barely fit a table and 4 chairs. The kind of place people called cozy when they meant cramped. But it was theirs, and it was clean, and the rent was paid. That was enough. Adrian started the coffee maker, pulled out the bread, and began assembling lunch. Peanut butter and jelly, apple slices, a granola bar. He worked quickly, efficiently, the routine so familiar he didn't have to think about it. "Dad, you forgot the juice box again." He paused, glanced at the open lunchbox. She was right. He turned back to the fridge, grabbed a juice box, and tucked it in. "Got it," he said. "And napkins." He stopped. "Right." Lily looked up from her coloring, smiling. "You're getting better." "Thanks, kid." "But you still forget stuff." "I'm working on it." She went back to her drawing, humming softly. Adrian poured himself coffee, black, and leaned against the counter, watching her. She looked so much like her mother it hurt sometimes, the same dark hair, the same stubborn tilt to her chin. But her eyes, those were his. Gray-blue, always watching, always thinking. Her mother had left when Lily was 2. No fight, no drama. Just a note on the counter one morning that said she couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't be a mother, couldn't be a wife, couldn't stay. Adrian had read that note 20 times, looking for something he could fix, something he could change. But there was nothing. So he'd folded it, put it in a drawer, and started figuring out how to do this alone. That was 6 years ago. And he was still figuring it out. "Dad, you're staring." Adrian blinked. "What?" Lily gave him a look. "You were staring at me. It's weird." "Sorry." "It's okay. But we're going to be late if you don't get dressed." He glanced at the clock. She was right. "You're very bossy this morning," he said, heading toward his room. "You're very slow this morning," she called after him. Adrian changed quickly. Slacks, button-down shirt, tie. He knotted the tie in the mirror, straightened his collar, and grabbed his jacket from the closet. When he came back to the kitchen, Lily had her backpack on and was waiting by the door. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded. "Homework?" "In the backpack." "Permission slip for the field trip?" "Signed and in the front pocket." "Lunch?" He held it up. "Okay," she said. "Now we can go." They left the apartment and headed down the 3 flights of stairs. The elevator had been broken for 2 weeks, and the landlord kept saying he'd fix it next week. Outside, the city was already awake. Traffic hummed in the distance, people rushed past with coffee cups and briefcases, and the air smelled like exhaust and rain. Lily slipped her hand into his as they walked toward the bus stop. "Is Miss Patterson going to be mean today?" she asked. "Probably not." "She was mean yesterday." "What'd she do?" "She said my dragon looked like a chicken." Adrian bit back a smile. "Was it supposed to be a dragon?" "Yes." "Then it was a dragon." Lily squeezed his hand. "That's what I told her." They reached the bus stop just as the bus pulled up. Adrian helped her onto the steps, watched as she found a seat near the window. She waved at him through the glass, her face bright and unworried. He waved back, standing there until the bus pulled away and disappeared around the corner. Then he turned and headed toward the subway. The train was packed, as always. Adrian squeezed into a spot near the door, one hand gripping the pole, the other holding his phone. He scrolled through his emails, deleting the junk, flagging the urgent ones. One stood out. From Elena Voss. Subject: Client lunch today. Harrington Group, 12:30. Don't be late. Adrian read it twice, then pocketed the phone. Elena Voss, his boss. The CEO of Voss Strategy Group, a mid-sized consulting firm that had somehow survived 3 recessions and a pandemic through sheer force of will, most of it hers. She was 30 years old, which made her younger than half the people she managed, and she carried that fact like a weapon she didn't need to draw, but everyone knew was there. Adrian had worked for her for 2 years. In that time, he'd learned a few things about Elena Voss. She was smarter than anyone else in the room. She didn't tolerate excuses. She noticed everything, and she had a way of looking at you that made you feel like you were either the most important person in the world or completely invisible, depending on what she needed from you in that moment. Adrian had never been able to figure out which category he fell into. The train pulled into his stop, and he stepped out onto the platform, joining the river of people flowing toward the exits. The morning air hit him as he climbed the stairs, cold, damp, carrying the smell of street vendors and car exhaust. He walked the 3 blocks to the office, a glass and steel building that looked like every other glass and steel building in the city. The lobby was all polished marble and echoing footsteps. He swiped his badge at the turnstile and took the elevator to the 9th floor. The office was already buzzing, phones ringing, keyboards clicking, people moving between desks with tablets and coffee mugs. Adrian made his way to his desk, dropped his bag, and logged into his computer. "Morning, Blake." He looked up. Marcus Chen, one of the senior analysts, leaned against the partition, holding a mug that said "World's Okayest Employee." "Morning," Adrian said. "Big lunch today, huh?" "Yeah." "Harrington Group. That's the big one." "Yep." Marcus grinned. "No pressure." "Thanks for the reminder." Elena's been stressed about it all week. She actually snapped at Davis yesterday for leaving a typo in a slide deck. Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Elena doesn't snap. She did yesterday." Marcus took a sip of coffee. "You ready?" "As ready as I'm going to be." "Good luck, man. We're all counting on you not to screw this up." "Again, super helpful." Marcus laughed and walked away. Adrian turned back to his computer and opened the presentation file. The Harrington Group was a potential client worth more than the firm had pulled in the entire previous quarter. If they signed, it would change everything. If they didn't, Elena would be looking at budget cuts and layoffs before the end of the year. No pressure. He spent the next 3 hours going through every slide, every data point, every word. He rehearsed his talking points, checked the numbers twice, made sure there were no typos, no inconsistencies, nothing that could be questioned. By 11:30, his coffee had gone cold and his neck was stiff. He stood, stretched, and walked to the break room to refill his mug. Elena was already there. She stood by the window looking out at the city, a tablet in one hand and a ceramic mug in the other. She was dressed in a charcoal suit, her dark hair pulled back in a low ponytail, her posture perfect. She didn't look stressed. She never looked stressed. But Adrian had worked for her long enough to know the signs. The way she held her shoulders just a little too straight. The way her jaw was set. The way she hadn't touched her coffee. "Morning," he said. She turned, and for a split second something flickered across her face. Relief, maybe, or just acknowledgement that she wasn't alone anymore. "Morning," she said. "You ready?" "Yeah." "Walk me through it." Adrian set his mug down and pulled out his phone, opening the Notes app. Harrington's bringing his VP and their legal counsel. The VP is going to focus on timeline and feasibility. The lawyer's going to focus on risk and liability. Harrington himself is going to focus on whether he trusts us. Elena nodded. "And your plan?" "Keep it simple. No jargon. Show them the roadmap, acknowledge the risks, explain the contingencies. Let them see we've thought through the problems before they ask." "Good." She paused. "And if they push back on the timeline? Then I pivot to phased implementation. Show them how we can deliver value incrementally instead of all at once." Elena's expression softened, just barely. "You've been doing this long enough. You know what you're doing." "Thanks." She looked at him for a moment longer, and Adrian felt that familiar sensation, the one where he couldn't quite read her, couldn't quite tell what she was thinking. Then she picked up her mug and walked past him toward the door. "Don't be late," she said over her shoulder. "I won't." At 12:15, Adrian grabbed his jacket and met Elena at the elevator. They didn't talk on the way down. Didn't talk in the cab. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that came from working together long enough that words weren't always necessary. The restaurant was the kind of place Adrian hated. White tablecloths, waiters in black vests, a wine list thicker than most novels. The kind of place where every dish was described with at least 4 adjectives, and you had to pretend you knew what reduction meant. But he smiled, straightened his tie, and followed Elena inside. The Harrington Group delegation was already seated. 3 men, all in suits that probably cost more than Adrian's rent. Richard Harrington was in his late 50s, silver-haired, with the kind of face that looked like it had been carved from stone and then polished to a shine. He stood when they approached, extending a hand. "Elena, good to see you." "Richard, thanks for making the time." Elena shook his hand, then gestured to Adrian. "This is Adrian Blake, my head of strategy implementation." Harrington's handshake was firm, measuring. "Adrian, Richard Harrington." "Pleasure," Adrian said. Harrington introduced his VP, a younger man named Kyle, sharp-eyed and impatient, and their lawyer, a quiet man named Bergman who looked like he'd heard every excuse in the book and believed none of them. They sat. The waiter appeared, poured water, recited specials that Adrian immediately forgot. Elena ordered first. Adrian followed her lead. Then Harrington leaned back in his chair, folded his hands, and smiled. "So," he said, "tell me why I should trust you with a project this size." Elena didn't miss a beat. "Because we don't make promises we can't keep. And when we run into problems, and we will, you'll know about them before they become disasters." Harrington's smile widened. "I like honesty." "Then you'll like us." Kyle, the VP, leaned forward. "Let's talk timeline. Your proposal says 18 months. That's aggressive." Adrian opened his tablet, pulled up the presentation. "It is, but it's built on a phased rollout. We're not asking you to wait 18 months to see results. You'll see measurable impact by month 6. And if you hit delays? Then we've built in buffer weeks at each phase. If we slip in phase 1, we adjust phase 2 to compensate. The overall timeline stays intact." Bergman, the lawyer, spoke for the first time. "What's your contingency if a vendor falls through? We've identified backup vendors for every critical component. They're already vetted and under preliminary contract. Kyle wasn't satisfied. And if your team underperforms? Adrian met his eyes. Then we bring in additional resources at our expense, not yours. You're paying for results, not ours. There was a pause, then Harrington laughed. You've thought this through. That's the job, Adrian said. The appetizers arrived. The conversation shifted, became lighter. Harrington asked about the firm, about Elena's background, about how they'd managed to stay competitive in a market dominated by bigger players. Elena answered smoothly, confidently, like she was telling a story she'd told 100 times. But Adrian could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her fingers tapped once against her water glass. She was worried. This deal mattered, more than she was letting on. The entrees came. The conversation stayed easy, almost friendly. Kyle softened a little. Even Bergman cracked a faint smile at one of Harrington's jokes. Adrian started to relax. And that was when Harrington turned to him, smile still in place, tone still casual. So, Adrian, he said, you married? The question hit Adrian like a bucket of cold water. He blinked. What? Just curious, Harrington said, cutting into his steak. A guy like you, managing all this pressure, traveling for work, usually there's a spouse somewhere holding down the fort. Adrian's mind went blank. He could feel the entire table's attention shift toward him. Kyle smirked. Bergman glanced up from his notes. Elena's fork paused halfway to her mouth. His brain scrambled for an answer. No would lead to more questions. It's complicated, sounded pathetic. I'd rather not talk about it would make him look defensive. And then, without thinking, the words just fell out. Yeah, Adrian said. Actually, my wife's right here. He gestured toward Elena. The table went completely silent. Adrian's stomach dropped. What did I just do? Then Harrington threw his head back and laughed, a loud, booming laugh that filled the entire restaurant. Well, I'll be damned, he said, grinning. That's convenient. Kyle laughed too. Even Bergman's mouth twitched. Adrian forced a smile, his heart pounding so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. He didn't dare look at Elena, but he could feel her next to him, perfectly still. Then, so quietly that only he could hear, she spoke. I wouldn't mind that. Adrian's entire body went cold. He turned his head just barely and met her eyes. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't joking. Her face was calm, composed, but there was a faint blush on her cheeks. Soft, unmistakable. And her eyes were saying something he didn't have words for. Harrington was still talking, something about work-life balance and how rare it was to find a couple who could manage both career and relationship. But Adrian couldn't hear him. All he could hear was his own pulse, hammering in his ears. Elena held his gaze for one more second. Then she turned back to the table, picked up her water glass, and took a slow sip. Adrian sat frozen. What the hell just happened? The rest of the lunch passed in a fog. Adrian smiled when he was supposed to smile, nodded when he was supposed to nod, answered questions when they came, but his brain was stuck on repeat, playing those 5 words over and over. I wouldn't mind that. By the time they stood to leave, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries, Adrian's shirt was damp with sweat. Harrington clapped him on the shoulder. You two make a good team, he said. I'll have my people send over the contracts by end of week. Elena smiled. We'll be ready. They walked out of the restaurant together, side by side, neither of them speaking. The sunlight felt too bright, the street noise too loud. Adrian's hands were shaking. They made it half a block before Elena stopped. She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. Adrian? I'm sorry, he blurted. I don't know why I said that. I panicked. Harrington put me on the spot, and I just... Stop. He stopped. Elena looked at him, her eyes searching his face. Then she said very quietly, Did you mean it? Adrian's breath caught. What? When you called me your wife, did you mean it? He didn't know how to answer that. It was just a reflex. I wasn't thinking. That's not what I asked. Adrian stared at her. The city moved around them, people rushing past, cars honking, the distant wail of a siren. But in that moment, it felt like the world had narrowed to just the two of them. I don't know, he said finally. Maybe. Elena's breath hitched, then she turned and started walking again. Adrian followed, his mind racing. They didn't speak the entire way back to the office. When they reached the building, Elena stopped at the entrance. "My office," she said. 10 minutes. Then she walked inside, leaving Adrian standing on the sidewalk, heart pounding, head spinning. He stood there for a long moment trying to pull himself together. Then he followed her in. 10 minutes later, Adrian stood outside Elena's office, hand raised to knock. He hesitated. This was it. Whatever happened next would change everything. He knocked. "Come in." Adrian opened the door. Elena sat behind her desk, hands folded, expression calm. But her eyes gave her away. She was just as rattled as he was. "Close the door," she said. He did. "Sit." He sat. Elena looked at him for a long moment, and Adrian could see her working through something, weighing options, calculating risks. Finally, she spoke. "We need to talk about what happened." "Yeah," Adrian said. "Why did you say that? The truth this time." Adrian exhaled slowly. "Because Harrington was asking questions I didn't want to answer, and you were sitting right there, and it just came out. That's still not the whole truth." He looked down at his hands. "No, it's not." Elena leaned forward. "Then what is?" Adrian's throat tightened. He thought about the past 2 years, about the late nights when Elena had stayed at the office just to help him fix a presentation that wasn't even her responsibility, about the time she'd covered for him when Lily got sick, about the way she'd quietly shifted his schedule so he could make it to parent-teacher conferences, about the way she looked at him sometimes when she thought he wasn't paying attention. "I think," he said slowly, "part of me has been pretending for a while now." Elena went very still. "Pretending what?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Adrian looked up, met her eyes. "That this is just work." The silence that followed was deafening. Elena's hands trembled slightly. She pressed them flat against the desk. "Adrian," she said carefully, "I'm your boss. I know. This could complicate everything. I know. And you have a daughter. I know that too." Elena stood, walked around the desk, and leaned against the edge of it, closer now, but still keeping distance between them. "Then what are we doing?" she asked. Adrian stood. They were close enough now that he could see the rapid rise and fall of her chest, could hear the slight catch in her breathing. "I don't know," he said, "but I know I didn't lie at lunch." Elena's eyes searched his face. "You barely know me. I know you stayed late 3 nights last week to help me fix a budget model that wasn't even your problem. That's part of my job." "No," Adrian said quietly. "It's not. You don't do that for anyone else." Elena opened her mouth to argue, then closed it, because she couldn't. "I noticed things too," Adrian said. The air between them felt electric, charged with everything they'd both been avoiding for months. Elena took a shaky breath. "This is a bad idea." "Probably. You have too much to lose. So do you." She shook her head. "I don't have a child depending on me." Adrian stepped closer. "That doesn't mean you have nothing to lose." Elena looked at him, and for the first time since he'd met her, the mask cracked. He could see the fear underneath, not of him, of this, of what it might mean, of what it might cost. "If we cross this line," she said, her voice breaking slightly, "and it falls apart, then we'll deal with it," Adrian said. "Together." Elena stared at him, her breath coming faster now, her eyes wide and uncertain. And then, before either of them could think too hard about it, she closed the distance and kissed him. It wasn't soft. It wasn't tentative. It was desperate and raw and real. Two people who'd been holding back for so long that when the dam finally broke, there was no controlling it. Adrian's hands found her waist, pulling her closer. Elena's fingers tangled in his hair, and for one perfect, terrifying moment, nothing else existed. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. Elena stared at him, her face flushed, her eyes bright with something that looked like panic and relief all at once. "What did we just do?" she whispered. Adrian didn't answer, because he didn't know. All he knew was that everything had just changed, and there was no going back. Elena stepped away, running a hand through her hair, her composure cracking further. "You should go," she said. "Elena, please, I need to think." Adrian hesitated, then nodded. He walked to the door, paused with his hand on the handle. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "I don't regret it." He left before she could respond. The rest of the day was a blur. Adrian went through the motions, emails, meetings, phone calls, but his mind was somewhere else entirely. At 5:30, he left the office and headed to pick up Lily. She was waiting outside the school, backpack slung over one shoulder, talking to another girl about something that involved a lot of hand gestures. When she saw him, she waved and ran over. "Hey, Dad." "Hey, kiddo. Good day?" "Yeah, we did science. We made volcanoes." "That sounds messy." "It was awesome." They walked home together, Lily chattering the entire way about baking soda and vinegar and how Tommy Morrison's volcano had exploded all over his shirt. Adrian listened, nodded, made the right sounds, but his mind kept drifting back to Elena's office, to the kiss, to the look in her eyes afterward. When they got home, he made dinner, spaghetti, because it was easy and Lily would actually eat it. They sat at the table together and Lily told him about the spelling test she'd aced and the book report that was due next week. "Can you help me pick a book?" she asked. "Sure. What are the options?" She rattled off a list of titles, and they talked through the pros and cons of each one until she settled on a story about a girl who discovered she could talk to animals. After dinner, Adrian helped her with her homework, read her 2 chapters instead of 1 because she asked nicely, and tucked her into bed. "Dad?" she said as he turned off the light. "Yeah? Are you okay?" He paused. "Why do you ask?" "You seem weird today." Adrian smiled despite himself. "Just a long day at work." "Okay." She yawned, snuggling deeper into the blankets. "Love you." "Love you too, kiddo." He closed the door softly and stood in the hallway for a moment, listening to the quiet sounds of the apartment settling around him. Then he walked to the living room, sat down on the couch, and put his head in his hands. His phone buzzed. He pulled it out. "Elena. Are you okay?" Adrian stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back. "I don't know. Are you?" The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Elena. No." Adrian's chest tightened. "Adrian, we should talk. Tomorrow?" "Elena. Yeah, tomorrow." He set the phone down and leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow. Whatever happened next started tomorrow. And for the first time in years, Adrian Blake had absolutely no idea what he was walking into. But he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't walking away. Not this time. Adrian didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, watching the shadows from the streetlight outside shift across the plaster, his mind replaying the kiss over and over until the memory felt more like a fever dream than something that had actually happened. Elena's hands in his hair, the way she'd pulled him closer like she was drowning and he was air. The sound she'd made, barely audible, somewhere between a gasp and a sigh, when he'd pressed his palm against the small of her back. And then the look on her face afterward, like she'd just stepped off a cliff and was still falling. Adrian rolled onto his side, punched his pillow into a different shape, and tried to force his brain to shut down. It didn't work. At 6 a.m, he gave up, dragged himself out of bed, and started the coffee maker. Lily appeared in the kitchen 20 minutes later, already dressed, her backpack slung over one shoulder. "You look terrible," she said. Adrian glanced up from his coffee. "Good morning to you too." "Did you even sleep?" "A little." She squinted at him, skeptical. "You have bags under your eyes." "Thanks for the update." "I'm just saying." She grabbed a granola bar from the cabinet and tore open the wrapper. "You should go to bed earlier." "I'll work on that." They went through the morning routine, backpack check, lunch packed, shoes on. Adrian walked her to the bus stop, watched her climb aboard, waved as the bus pulled away. Then he stood there on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, dreading the day ahead. The subway ride felt longer than usual. The office felt louder. By the time Adrian sat down at his desk, his coffee was cold and his nerves were shot. He opened his email. Nothing from Elena. He wasn't sure if that was a relief or a disappointment. Marcus appeared at his desk around 9:30, grinning like he knew something Adrian didn't. "Heard the Harrington lunch went well," Marcus said. Adrian kept his eyes on his screen. "Yeah, it was fine." "Fine?" Harrington's assistant already reached out about contracts. That's better than fine. Good. Marcus leaned against the partition. You okay, man? You look like you got hit by a truck. Just tired. Late night? Something like that. Marcus studied him for a moment, then shrugged. Well, whatever you did, keep doing it. Elena's in a good mood for once. Adrian's stomach dropped. She is? Yeah, she actually said good morning to people when she came in. It was unsettling. Marcus walked away, still grinning. Adrian sat frozen, staring at his computer screen without seeing it. Elena was in a good mood. What the hell did that mean? He spent the next 2 hours trying to work, failing miserably, and checking his phone every 5 minutes even though he knew there were no new messages. At 11:45, his phone buzzed. Elena. Conference room B, noon. Adrian's pulse spiked. He stood, straightened his tie, and made his way across the office. Conference room B was small, windowless, used mostly for one-on-ones and performance reviews. Adrian had been in it exactly 3 times, and none of those times had been pleasant. He knocked once, then opened the door. Elena stood at the far end of the room, arms crossed, looking out at the blank wall like it held answers she was trying to decode. She turned when he entered. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Elena exhaled slowly and gestured to the chairs. Sit. Adrian sat. Elena didn't. She stayed standing, one hand resting on the back of the chair across from him, the other still crossed over her chest like she was holding herself together by force of will. I didn't sleep last night, she said. Me neither. I keep replaying it. What happened? What I said? What you said? She paused, her jaw tight. What I did. Adrian's throat felt dry. Elena, let me finish. Her voice was steady, but there was an edge to it. I'm your boss, Adrian. That means I have power over you. Your job, your career, your ability to provide for your daughter, all of that is on some level in my hands. And I kissed you anyway. Adrian started to speak, but she held up a hand. I'm not done. She took a breath. If this goes anywhere, if we do this, it can't be because you feel like you have to. It can't be because you're afraid of what happens if you say no. It has to be because you want it, really want it, and I need to hear you say that. Adrian stood. Elena's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't move. I don't feel pressured, Adrian said, and I'm not afraid of you. You should be. Maybe, but I'm not. He took a step closer. You want to know the truth? I've been thinking about this for months, maybe longer. I just didn't let myself go there because it felt impossible. Elena's breath hitched. Why? Because you're you, and I'm just... He stopped, searching for the right words. I'm a guy who barely makes rent. I've got a kid, a dead-end apartment, and a life that's held together with duct tape and stubbornness. You could have anyone. I don't want anyone. Her voice was quiet now, almost fragile. I want you. The words hung in the air between them, heavy and undeniable. Adrian closed the distance. Elena didn't move, didn't pull away. If we do this, he said, it's going to be complicated. I know. People are going to talk. I know. And if it falls apart, then it falls apart. Elena's eyes locked on his, fierce and certain. But I'm tired of pretending I don't feel this, aren't you? Adrian didn't answer. He just kissed her. This time it was slower, deliberate. Not the desperate collision from yesterday, but something deeper. An acknowledgement that they'd already crossed the line and there was no point pretending otherwise. When they pulled apart, Elena's forehead rested against his, her breath warm against his lips. We have to be smart about this, she whispered. I know. No one can know. Not yet. Okay? And if it affects our work, it won't. Elena pulled back just enough to look at him. You can't promise that. No, Adrian admitted. But I can promise I'll try. She studied his face for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, she said. Then we try. They separated, putting distance between them again, both of them painfully aware of how thin the walls were and how easily someone could walk in. Elena smoothed her blazer, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. We should get back. Yeah, She walked toward the door, paused with her hand on the handle. Adrian? Yeah? Thank you for being honest. You too. She left first. Adrian waited 2 minutes, then followed. The rest of the day passed in a strange haze. Adrian went to meetings, answered emails, had a conference call with a vendor that ran 20 minutes too long. But his mind was somewhere else entirely, stuck on the weight of Elena's words. I want you. No one had said that to him in a long time, maybe ever. At 5:30, Adrian packed up his things and headed out. He picked up Lily from aftercare, listened to her talk about a substitute teacher who'd let them watch a documentary about penguins, and made it home just as the sky was starting to darken. Dinner was leftovers, spaghetti from the night before, reheated in the microwave. They ate together at the table, Lily doing most of the talking, Adrian nodding at the right moments. Dad, you're not listening. He blinked. What? I said, can we go to the museum this weekend? Which museum? The natural history one. They have a new dinosaur exhibit. Adrian thought about his schedule, thought about the Harrington contracts that would probably need reviewing, thought about Elena. Then he looked at his daughter, her face hopeful and open, and realized he'd been thinking about everything except what mattered. Yeah, he said, we can do that. Lily grinned. Really? Really? Can we get ice cream after? Don't push your luck. She laughed, and Adrian felt something in his chest ease just a little. After dinner, they watched half a movie before Lily started yawning. Adrian sent her to brush her teeth, then tucked her into bed. Night, Dad. Night, kiddo. He was halfway to the door when she spoke again. Dad? He turned. Yeah? Are you happy? The question caught him off guard. What do you mean? I don't know. You just seem different lately, like you're thinking about something all the time. Adrian walked back to the bed, sat down on the edge. I'm okay. Just work stuff. Is work bad? No, it's actually kind of good right now. Lily seemed to consider this. Okay. As long as you're okay. I am. He squeezed her hand. I promise. She smiled, satisfied, and closed her eyes. Adrian sat there for a moment longer, watching her breathe, feeling the weight of everything he was trying to balance pressing down on him. Then he stood, turned off the light, and closed the door. In the living room, his phone buzzed. Elena. You free tomorrow night? Adrian stared at the message, his heart rate picking up. Adrian. Depends. Why? Elena. I want to take you to dinner, somewhere we won't run into anyone from work. Adrian. Like a date? Elena. Yes, like a date. Adrian sat down on the couch, trying to process. A date. With Elena. His boss. The woman he'd kissed twice in the past 24 hours and couldn't stop thinking about. Adrian. I'll need to find someone to watch Lily. Elena. Can you? Adrian. Yeah, probably. Elena. Then it's a date. Adrian set the phone down, leaned back, and tried to steady his breathing. This was happening, really happening, and he had no idea if it was the best decision he'd ever made or the worst. The next day, Adrian called in a favor. His neighbor, Mrs. Chen, was a retired schoolteacher who lived alone with 2 cats and a fish tank that took up half her living room. She'd watched Lily a handful of times before, usually when Adrian had to work late or handle an emergency. She answered on the second ring. Adrian, how are you? Good, Mrs. Chen. I have a favor to ask. Of course. What do you need? Can you watch Lily tomorrow night, just for a few hours? There was a pause. Is everything okay? Yeah, He hesitated. I have plans. Plans. Mrs. Chen's tone shifted, became knowing. What kind of plans? The normal kind. Adrian Blake, are you going on a date? He closed his eyes. Maybe. Mrs. Chen laughed, a warm, delighted sound. It's about time. Yes, I'll watch her. What time? 6? Perfect. And Adrian? Yeah. Have fun. You deserve it. He hung up, feeling both relieved and terrified. The rest of the day passed in a blur of work and distraction. Adrian kept his head down, avoided Elena's office, and tried not to think about what tomorrow night would mean. He failed spectacularly. By the time he left the office, his nerves were frayed and his stomach was in knots. That night, after Lily was asleep, Adrian stood in front of his closet and stared at his clothes like they were written in a language he didn't understand. He owned exactly 3 button-down shirts that weren't for work, 2 pairs of jeans that didn't have holes, 1 jacket that almost fit. This was pathetic. He pulled out the least wrinkled shirt, held it up to the light, and tried to remember the last time he'd been on an actual date. 5 years ago. Maybe 6. Before Lily's mother left. Before everything fell apart. He'd forgotten how to do this. His phone buzzed. Elena. Second thoughts? Adrian smiled despite himself. Adrian. A few hundred. Elena. Same. Still want to do this? Adrian. Yeah, you? Elena. Yeah. He set the phone down, looked at the shirt in his hand, and made a decision. Whatever happened tomorrow, he was showing up. The next evening, Adrian dropped Lily off at Mrs. Chen's apartment at 6 on the dot. You look nice, Mrs. Chen said, eyeing his shirt and jacket. Thanks. Lily looked up at him, curious. Where are you going? Just dinner? With who? Adrian hesitated. A friend. What friend? Someone from work. Lily narrowed her eyes. Is it a girl? Mrs. Chen tried and failed to hide her smile. Yes, Adrian said. It's a girl. Do I know her? No. Is she nice? Adrian thought about Elena, sharp, brilliant, terrifying, and somehow vulnerable all at once. Yeah, he said. She's nice. Lily seemed to accept this. Okay. Have fun. Adrian kissed the top of her head. Be good. I'm always good. He left before she could ask any more questions. The restaurant was in a part of the city Adrian didn't usually go to. Quiet, residential, the kind of neighborhood where people walked dogs and knew their neighbors' names. The place itself was small, tucked between a bookstore and a dry cleaner, with warm light spilling out onto the sidewalk. Adrian checked his watch. 6:45. He was early. He went in anyway. The interior was cozy, intimate, maybe a dozen tables, soft music playing, the smell of garlic and wine hanging in the air. Elena was already there. She sat at a corner table, wearing a dark green dress that Adrian had never seen before, her hair down instead of pulled back, her expression unreadable. She looked up when he approached, and something in her face softened. Hi, she said. Hi. Adrian sat down, suddenly hyper-aware of every movement he made. His hands didn't know where to go. His jacket felt too tight. Elena smiled, and it was different from the smiles he'd seen at work, less controlled, more real. You look nervous, she said. I am. Me too. That helped. A waiter appeared, took their drink orders, disappeared again. Elena folded her hands on the table, watching him. When was the last time you did this? Went on a date? Yeah. Adrian thought about it. 6 years, maybe more. That's a long time. Yeah. Do you miss it? Dating, I mean. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. He paused. My life's been pretty full. Between work and Lily, there hasn't been much room for anything else. Elena's expression shifted, became something gentler. That sounds lonely. It is sometimes. Adrian met her eyes. But it's also been enough. Until recently. What changed? He didn't answer right away. The waiter returned with their drinks, wine for Elena, whiskey for Adrian. They ordered food, and then they were alone again. You, Adrian said finally. You changed. Elena's breath caught. I didn't do anything. You did. You just didn't realize it. She tilted her head, studying him. Like what? Like the time you rearranged my schedule so I could make Lily's school play. Or when you covered for me when I had to leave early because she got sick. Or when you stayed late to help me with that presentation, even though you had a flight to catch the next morning. Elena looked down at her wine glass. That's just being a decent boss. No, Adrian said. It's not. I've had decent bosses before. You're something else. She looked up, and there was something raw in her eyes now. I don't know how to do this. Do what? This. Be with someone. I'm not good at it. Adrian leaned forward. What makes you think I am? Elena laughed, soft, almost sad. You have a daughter who adores you. You've built a whole life around taking care of someone else. That's not nothing. It's also not the same as this. No, she agreed. It's not. They fell into silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like the kind of silence that came from two people trying to figure out how to be honest without breaking something fragile. The food arrived. They ate slowly, talking in fits and starts, about work, about the Harrington deal, about a movie Elena had seen that she thought Adrian would hate. Why would I hate it? He asked. Because it's pretentious and slow and nothing happens for the first hour. Then why did you like it? She smiled. Because it's pretentious and slow and nothing happens for the first hour. Adrian laughed and Elena's smile widened. It was easier after that. They talked about books, about music, about the fact that Elena had never learned to cook and survived mostly on takeout and protein bars. That's tragic, Adrian said. I know, but I've accepted it. Does that mean I'm going to have to cook for you? The words were out before he could stop them. Elena's eyes sparkled. Is that an offer? Maybe. Then maybe I'll take you up on it. By the time dessert came, Adrian had almost forgotten to be nervous. Almost. When the check arrived, Elena reached for it. I've got it, Adrian said. I invited you. Doesn't matter. Elena raised an eyebrow. Are we really going to fight about this? Yes. She studied him for a moment, then smiled and let go of the check. Okay, but next time I'm paying. Next time? Yeah. She leaned back in her chair, watching him. Unless you don't want there to be a next time. Adrian pulled out his wallet, set cash on the table. I want there to be a next time. Good. They left the restaurant together, stepping out into the cool night air. The street was quiet, almost empty. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Elena turned to face him, her expression uncertain again. Thank you, she said, for tonight. Thank you for asking. She hesitated, then stepped closer. Can I kiss you, or is that moving too fast? Adrian's heart hammered in his chest. You can kiss me. So she did. It was softer this time. Slower. Not desperate or urgent, but deliberate, like she was memorizing the shape of it, the taste of it, the way his hand settled on her waist. When they pulled apart, Elena's eyes were bright, her cheeks flushed. I should go, she said. Yeah, but neither of them moved. Finally, Adrian stepped back. I'll see you Monday. Yeah, Monday. Elena turned and walked toward her car, and Adrian watched until she was out of sight. Then he pulled out his phone and called a cab. On the ride home, he stared out the window, his mind replaying the entire night, trying to make sense of what was happening. He was falling for her. Maybe he'd been falling for a while. And the terrifying part was, he didn't want to stop. When he got home, Mrs. Chen was reading on the couch, Lily asleep in the guest bedroom. How was it? Mrs. Chen asked, setting down her book. Adrian smiled. Good, really good. I'm glad. She stood, gathering her things. She's a lucky woman. I think I'm the lucky one. Mrs. Chen patted his arm. Then you're both lucky. After she left, Adrian checked on Lily, still asleep, curled up with her stuffed elephant. He carried her back to her own bed, tucked her in, and stood there for a moment, watching her breathe. Then he went to his own room, lay down, and for the first time in weeks, fell asleep without his mind racing. But in the quiet hours before dawn, his phone buzzed. Elena, I can't stop thinking about tonight. Adrian smiled in the dark. Adrian, me neither. Elena, this is going to get complicated, isn't it? Adrian, probably. Elena, and we're doing it anyway? Adrian, yeah, we are. There was a long pause. Then, Elena, good, because I don't think I could stop even if I wanted to. Adrian stared at the message, his chest tight with something that felt like hope and terror all tangled together. Adrian, me neither. He set the phone down, closed his eyes, and let himself fall back asleep. Because whatever came next, he was in it now. And there was no turning back. The following Monday arrived with the kind of gray morning that made the city feel smaller, quieter. Adrian stood at the bathroom mirror, razor in hand, trying to focus on not cutting himself while his mind replayed Friday night on an endless loop. The dinner, the conversation, the kiss on the sidewalk that had felt like stepping off solid ground into open air. He rinsed his face, patted it dry, and stared at his reflection. What the hell was he doing? Dating his boss, sneaking around, building something that could blow up his entire life if it went wrong. And yet, when he thought about stopping, about pulling back and pretending none of this had happened, his chest tightened with something that felt like panic. He didn't want to stop. That was the terrifying part. "Dad, you're gonna be late," Lily's voice cut through his thoughts. Adrian grabbed his shirt, pulled it on, and headed to the kitchen. She was already at this table, backpack ready, eating cereal with the focused intensity of someone who took breakfast very seriously. "Morning," Adrian said. "You were staring at the mirror again." "I was shaving." "For like 20 minutes. Adrian poured coffee. It wasn't 20 minutes. It was a long time. She looked up at him, squinting. "Are you still thinking about that girl?" Adrian nearly spilled his coffee. "What?" "The girl from Friday, the one you had dinner with. Why would you think I'm thinking about her?" Lily gave him a look that said she was 8 years old and already too smart for this conversation. "Because you keep smiling at your phone and you've been weird all weekend." Adrian set down his mug. "I haven't been weird. You forgot to put milk in my cereal on Saturday. That was one time. And you let me stay up past bedtime to watch that animal documentary. You asked nicely. You never let me stay up." Lily pointed her spoon at him. "You like her." Adrian opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. Because she was right. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I do." Lily considered this, chewing thoughtfully. "Is she nice?" "Very." "Is she pretty?" "Yes." "Does she like you back?" Adrian smiled despite himself. "I think so." "Good." Lily went back to her cereal, satisfied. "You should keep her. I'll work on that." They finished breakfast, went through the checklist, and headed out the door. The morning routine was the same as always, but something felt different. Lighter, maybe, or just less heavy. Adrian dropped Lily at the bus stop, watched her wave from the window, and turned toward the subway with his stomach already twisting into knots. He was going to see Elena today. At work, where they had to pretend nothing had changed. The thought made his palms sweat. The office was already buzzing when Adrian arrived. He made his way to his desk, logged in, and tried to look like a person who wasn't having a minor crisis. Marcus appeared almost immediately, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Morning," Marcus said, setting one on Adrian's desk. "You look like you need this." "Thanks." Marcus leaned against the partition, studying him. "You okay? You've been off lately." "I'm fine." "You sure? Because you've had this weird energy for like a week now. Like you're either about to get fired or win the lottery and you can't figure out which." Adrian took a sip of coffee. "It's nothing." "Uh-huh." Marcus didn't look convinced. "Well, whatever it is, Elena's looking for you." Adrian's pulse spiked. "She is?" "Yeah. She asked me to send you to her office when you got in." "Did she say why?" "Nope, but she had that face." "What face?" "The one where you can't tell if you're about to get promoted or demoted." Adrian stood, straightened his tie. "Great. Good luck, man." Adrian crossed the office, his heart pounding harder with every step. When he reached Elena's door, he paused, took a breath, and knocked. "Come in." He opened the door. Elena sat behind her desk, looking exactly like she always did at work. Composed, professional, untouchable. But when she looked up and their eyes met, something flickered across her face. Relief. Or maybe the same nervous energy Adrian was fighting to keep under control. "Close the door," she said. Adrian did. "Sit." He sat. Elena folded her hands on the desk, her expression carefully neutral. "We need to set some ground rules." "Okay. At work, nothing changes. We're professional. We're colleagues. No one can know." "I agree. If we're in a meeting and I have to criticize your work, I'm going to do it, and you can't take it personally." "I won't." "And if this becomes a problem, if it affects the team or the company or your ability to do your job, we stop immediately." Adrian leaned forward. "Elena, I'm not going to let that happen." "You can't promise that." "No, but I can promise I'll try." Elena's jaw tightened. She looked down at her hands, then back up at him. "I've never done this before." "Done what?" "Dated someone I work with. It goes against everything I've built my career on. And if it gets out, If people think I'm showing you favoritism or that you're sleeping your way into promotions, then we deal with it, Adrian said. But we can't control what people think. We can only control what we do. Elena exhaled slowly. You make it sound simple. It's not, but it's also not impossible. She studied him for a long moment, and Adrian could see the wheels turning in her head, calculating risks, weighing outcomes. Then she nodded. Okay, we try. Okay. But we're careful. Agreed. Elena's expression softened, just a little. How was the rest of your weekend? Adrian smiled. Good. Lily figured out I went on a date. How? Apparently I've been smiling at my phone too much. Elena laughed, soft, genuine. She sounds smart. Too smart. Did you tell her about me? I told her I went to dinner with someone from work. She asked if you were nice. What did you say? I said yes. Elena's cheeks flushed slightly. Good answer. They sat there for a moment, the air between them charged with everything they weren't saying. Then Elena cleared her throat and straightened. You should get back to work. Yeah. Adrian stood, walked to the door, then paused with his hand on the handle. Elena? Yeah? Friday was really good. Her eyes softened. Yeah, it was. Adrian left before either of them could say anything else. The rest of the day passed in a blur of emails and spreadsheets and conference calls that Adrian barely paid attention to. He kept catching himself looking across the office toward Elena's door, wondering what she was thinking, wondering if she was looking back. At lunch, Marcus dragged him to a sandwich place 2 blocks away. Okay, spill, Marcus said, unwrapping his sub. Adrian looked up from his phone. Spill what? Whatever's going on with you. You've been distracted for days. And this morning you looked like you were about to pass out when I told you Elena wanted to see you. I'm fine. You're a terrible liar. Marcus took a bite, chewed, swallowed. Is it a girl? Adrian froze. Marcus grinned. It is. Holy shit, you're seeing someone. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. You've got that look. What look? The one where you're thinking about someone even when you're not trying to. Marcus leaned back in his chair, looking far too pleased with himself. So who is she? Someone from work? Adrian's stomach dropped. No. You answered that way too fast. It's not someone from work. Marcus studied him, skeptical. Okay, but whoever she is, she's got you twisted up. In a good way, I think. You seem, I don't know, less miserable than usual. Adrian couldn't help but smile. Thanks. I'm serious. You've been walking around like the weight of the world's on your shoulders for as long as I've known you. It's nice to see you not doing that. Adrian looked down at his sandwich, throat tight. Yeah, it's been good. Good. You deserve it, man. They finished lunch and headed back to the office. Adrian spent the rest of the afternoon trying to focus, trying not to look at Elena's door, trying to act like everything was normal. At 5:30, his phone buzzed. Elena. Dinner tomorrow? My place this time. Adrian stared at the message, his pulse picking up. Her place. That was different, more intimate, more real. Adrian. I'll need to arrange a sitter again. Elena. Can you? Adrian. Yeah. What time? Elena. 7? Adrian. I'll be there. Elena. Good. And Adrian? Adrian. Yeah? Elena. Bring an appetite. I'm ordering takeout. Adrian smiled. Adrian. I thought you said you couldn't cook. Elena. I can't. That is why I'm ordering takeout. Adrian. Fair enough. He pocketed his phone, grabbed his jacket, and headed out. That night, after Lily was asleep, Adrian sat on the couch and called Mrs. Chen. She answered on the first ring. Let me guess, she said. You need me to watch Lily again. If you're available. Adrian, I'm a retired woman with 2 cats and a fish tank. I'm always available. There was warmth in her voice. Same girl? Yeah. It's getting serious then. Adrian hesitated. Maybe. Maybe means yes. Mrs. Chen laughed softly. What time? 6:30? Perfect. And Adrian? Yeah? I'm happy for you, really. Thanks, Mrs. Chen. He hung up, set the phone down, and leaned back against the couch. Serious? Was that what this was? He thought about Elena, about the way she looked at him when she thought no one was watching, about the way her carefully controlled mask slipped when they were alone, about the way she'd kissed him on that sidewalk like she was afraid he might disappear. Yeah, he thought, maybe it was getting serious. The next evening, Adrian stood outside Elena's apartment building, staring up at the sleek glass facade and wondering what the hell he was doing. This was her world, modern, expensive, everything in his life wasn't. He checked the address one more time, then walked inside. The lobby was all marble and soft lighting, with a doorman who nodded politely as Adrian crossed to the elevator. He rode up to the 12th floor, his stomach twisting tighter with every passing second. When he reached her door, he hesitated. Then he knocked. The door opened. Elena stood there in jeans and a sweater, her hair down, barefoot. She looked softer than she ever did at work, less guarded. "Hi," she said. "Hi." She stepped aside. "Come in." Adrian walked into the apartment and stopped. It was beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, hardwood floors, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than his car. Everything was clean, organized, perfect. He turned to look at her. "This is really nice." Elena closed the door, suddenly looking self-conscious. "It's too much, I know. I bought it when I made partner, and I haven't really, made it feel like home yet." Adrian looked around again. She was right. It was beautiful, but it felt empty, like a showroom, like no one actually lived here. "How long have you been here?" he asked. 3 years? And you haven't decorated?" Elena shrugged. "I work a lot." Adrian walked to the windows, looking out at the city lights stretching endlessly in every direction. "The view's incredible. That's what sold me on the place." Elena came to stand beside him. "Sometimes I just sit here and watch the city move. It helps me think." "About what?" "Everything. Work, decisions, whether I'm doing any of this right." Adrian turned to look at her. "You run a successful company. You've got clients lining up. People respect you. I think you're doing it right." "Maybe." Elena's expression was hard to read. "But sometimes I wonder if I've just gotten really good at pretending." "Pretending what?" "That I know what I'm doing. That I have it all figured out." She looked down. "That I'm not terrified most of the time." Adrian's chest tightened. "You don't seem terrified." "That's the point." They stood there in silence for a moment, the city humming beyond the glass. Then Elena took a breath and turned toward the kitchen. "Come on, food's getting cold." They ate at her dining table, Thai food from a place down the street, spread out in white containers that Elena had transferred to actual plates. "You didn't have to do that," Adrian said. "Do what?" "Put it on plates. I would have eaten straight from the containers." Elena smiled. "I know, but I'm trying to pretend I have my life together. Remember?" They talked as they ate, about work, about the Harrington contracts that had officially come through, about a new project Elena was considering that would mean hiring 3 more people. "That's huge," Adrian said. "It's risky. If it doesn't pan out, I'll have to let people go." "And if it does?" "Then we double in size in the next year." Adrian watched her as she talked, saw the way her eyes lit up when she got into the details, the way her hands moved when she was excited about something. She was brilliant, driven, ambitious in a way that made Adrian feel like he was standing still. And she was here, with him. "What are you thinking?" Elena asked. Adrian blinked. "What?" "You're staring." "Sorry." "Don't apologize, just tell me." He set down his fork. "I'm thinking I still don't understand why you're doing this." "Doing what?" "This. With me." He gestured vaguely. "You could be with someone who fits into your world, someone who's successful, who's got their life together, who doesn't have a kid in a crappy apartment, and—" "Stop," Elena said. Adrian stopped. She leaned forward, her eyes fierce. "Do you know what I see when I look at you?" He shook his head. "I see someone who shows up every single day, even when it's hard, who takes care of a daughter he's raising alone without complaining or asking for credit, who turned down a job offer from a competitor last year because it would have meant longer hours and less time with her." Adrian's throat tightened. "How do you know about that?" "Because I pay attention." Elena's voice was soft now. And I see someone who works harder than anyone else on my team, but never asks for recognition. Who gives credit to other people even when the ideas are his? Who stayed late 3 nights in a row last month to help Marcus fix a client presentation because Marcus was panicking and you didn't want him to fail? It's not just anything, Elena interrupted. It's who you are. And that's why I'm doing this. Because when I'm with you, I don't have to pretend. I don't have to be the CEO or the boss or the person who has all the answers. I can just be me. Adrian stared at her, his heart pounding. Then he stood, walked around the table, and kissed her. Elena's hands came up to his face, pulling him closer, and for a long moment, nothing else existed. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. I should probably admit something, Adrian said. What? I've been thinking about doing that since I walked in the door. Elena smiled, her eyes bright. Good, because I've been thinking about it all day. They moved to the couch, closer now, Elena's head resting on Adrian's shoulder. Can I ask you something? Adrian said. Yeah. Do you ever wish your life was different, simpler? Elena was quiet for a moment. Sometimes, but then I think about what I'd have to give up to make it simpler. And I'm not sure I could. What would you have to give up? Control, mostly. I've spent my whole life building this, making sure I didn't need anyone, making sure I could take care of myself. She paused. Letting someone in means giving up some of that control. And that's terrifying. Adrian's arm tightened around her. I'm not asking you to give up control. I know, but that doesn't make it less scary. For what it's worth, Adrian said, I'm terrified too. Elena lifted her head to look at him. Of what? Of screwing this up, of letting you down, of my life not being enough. Your life is enough, Elena said quietly. You're enough. Adrian's throat tightened. No one had said that to him in a very long time. They sat there in the quiet, the city lights glowing beyond the windows, and Adrian felt something shift inside him. This was real. Whatever they were building, it was real, and that made it worth the risk. I should probably head home soon, Adrian said eventually. Mrs. Chen's watching Lily, and I don't want to take advantage. Elena nodded, but didn't move. When can I see you again? When do you want to see me? Tomorrow, but that's probably too soon. Adrian smiled. Tomorrow works. Really? Yeah, I'll figure it out. Elena kissed him again, soft and slow, like she was trying to memorize the feeling. When Adrian finally left, stepping out into the cool night air, his mind was spinning. He pulled out his phone and texted Mrs. Chen. Can you watch Lily tomorrow night too? I'll pay you double. The reply came back almost immediately. You don't have to pay me double. But yes, I'm happy to help. Adrian smiled, pocketed the phone, and headed toward the subway. Over the next 2 weeks, Adrian and Elena fell into a rhythm. At work, they were careful, professional. No lingering glances, no unnecessary conversations. If they were in meetings together, Elena treated him exactly the same as everyone else, which meant she was demanding, exacting, and occasionally ruthless when his work didn't meet her standards. Adrian didn't take it personally, because at night, when the office was empty and the city had gone quiet, Elena would text him, and they'd meet, sometimes at her place, sometimes at a restaurant on the other side of the city where no one from work would see them. Once, on a rainy Thursday, they met in a park and just walked, talking about nothing and everything until Adrian's shoes were soaked through and Elena's hair was plastered to her face. It was messy and complicated and nothing like Adrian had imagined. But it was also the best thing that had happened to him in years. Lily noticed the change. You're happy, she said one morning, looking up from her cereal. Adrian glanced at her. What? You're happy. You smile more now. I've always smiled. Not like this. She tilted her head, studying him. Is it because of her, the girl from work? Adrian set down his coffee. Maybe. Are you going to marry her? Adrian nearly choked. What? No. We just started. It's not. Lily shrugged, unbothered. Okay, but if you do, can I be in the wedding? Lily, I'm just asking. Adrian shook his head, smiling despite himself. We're a long way from that. But you like her a lot. Yeah, I do. Good. Lily went back to her cereal. You should bring her here sometime so I can meet her. Adrian's stomach flipped. You want to meet her? Yeah, I want to see if she's as nice as you say. She is. Then let me meet her. Adrian thought about what it would mean to bring Elena into this part of his life, to let her see the cramped apartment, the mismatched furniture, the reality of what his world actually looked like. It terrified him. But Lily was right. If this was going somewhere, if Elena was going to be part of his life, then she needed to meet his daughter. That night, Adrian called Elena. Hey, she said. What's up? I need to ask you something. Okay. Adrian took a breath. Lily wants to meet you. There was a long pause. She does? Elena's voice was quiet, careful. Yeah, she's been asking about you, and I think if we're doing this, she should know. Another pause. Adrian, are you sure? That's a big step. I know, but I don't want to keep this separate forever. And she's smart. She's going to figure it out eventually. Elena exhaled slowly. Okay. When? This weekend, Saturday afternoon. Nothing fancy, just lunch. Let her meet you. See how it goes. Okay, Elena said. Yeah, let's do it. Adrian's heart pounded. You sure? No, but I want to. There was a smile in her voice now. Besides, if an 8-year-old doesn't approve of me, I probably don't deserve you. She's going to love you. Let's hope. They hung up, and Adrian sat there on the couch, staring at his phone. This was happening. Elena was going to meet Lily. And suddenly, everything felt very, very real. Saturday arrived too fast. Adrian spent the morning cleaning the apartment, vacuuming, wiping down counters, shoving clutter into closets where it wouldn't be seen. Lily watched him with growing amusement. Dad, you're freaking out. I'm not freaking out. You cleaned the bathroom twice. I'm just making sure everything looks nice. She's not going to care about the bathroom. You don't know that. Lily rolled her eyes. She's coming to meet me, not inspect the apartment. Adrian stopped, looked at his daughter. You're right. I know. At noon, there was a knock on the door. Adrian's stomach dropped. Lily jumped up. I'll get it. Wait. But she was already at the door, pulling it open. Elena stood in the hallway, holding a small bakery box, looking more nervous than Adrian had ever seen her. She was dressed casually, jeans, a sweater, her hair pulled back. No makeup, no armor. Just Elena. Hi, she said, looking down at Lily. You must be Lily. Lily stared up at her, assessing. You're taller than I thought. Elena smiled. Is that good or bad? I haven't decided yet. Adrian appeared behind Lily. Hey! Elena's eyes met his, and something in her expression softened. Hey! Come in, Adrian said. Elena stepped inside and Lily immediately took charge. What's in the box? Lily asked. Cupcakes, Elena said. I wasn't sure what kind you liked, so I got a few different ones. Lily's eyes lit up. Can I see? Elena handed her the box. Lily opened it, surveyed the contents, and nodded approvingly. Okay, Lily said. You can stay. Elena laughed, genuine, surprised. Good to know. They ate lunch at the small kitchen table, sandwiches that Adrian had made, chips, the cupcakes for dessert. Lily asked Elena 100 questions. What's your favorite color? Do you like dogs or cats? Have you ever been to Disneyland? What's your job? Do you like my dad? Elena answered every single one patiently, honestly. And slowly, Adrian watched his daughter's walls come down. By the end of lunch, Lily was showing Elena her drawings, explaining in great detail why dragons were definitely real and why Miss Patterson was wrong. Elena listened like it was the most important conversation she'd ever had. When it was time for Elena to leave, Lily walked her to the door. You're okay, Lily said, for a grown-up. Elena crouched down to Lily's level. Thanks. You're pretty okay yourself. Lily considered this. Are you going to keep coming around? Elena glanced at Adrian, then back at Lily. Do you want me to? Lily nodded. Yeah, Dad's happier when you're here. Elena's eyes went bright. Then yeah, I'll keep coming around. Good. Lily hugged her, quick, unexpected, then ran back inside. Adrian walked Elena to the elevator. She's amazing, Elena said quietly. She liked you. How can you tell? She hugged you. She doesn't do that with people she doesn't trust. Elena's hand found his. Thank you for letting me meet her. Thank you for showing up. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. Elena stepped inside, then turned back. Adrian? Yeah? I think I'm falling for you, just so you know. The doors closed before Adrian could respond. But he stood there in the hallway, heart pounding, a smile spreading across his face. Because he was falling too. And for the first time in a long time, he wasn't afraid of where he might land. Adrian stood in the empty hallway long after the elevator doors had closed, Elena's words echoing in his head. I think I'm falling for you. He pulled out his phone, typed, and deleted 3 different responses before finally settling on something simple. Adrian. I'm already there. He hit send before he could second guess it. The reply came almost immediately. Elena. Good. Because I was terrified I was the only one. Adrian smiled, pocketed his phone, and went back inside. Lily was on the couch, drawing in her notebook. She didn't look up when he entered. She's nice, Lily said. Adrian sat down beside her. Yeah? Yeah, I like her. I'm glad. Lily kept drawing, her tongue sticking out slightly in concentration. Are you going to marry her? Adrian's brain short-circuited. What? No, it's too soon for that. But you want to. Lily, I can tell. She looked up at him, matter of fact. You look at her the way people look at each other in movies, before they get married. Adrian didn't know what to say to that. Lily went back to her drawing. It's okay if you do. Marry her, I mean. I wouldn't mind. Something in Adrian's chest cracked open. He pulled his daughter close, pressed a kiss to the top of her head. I love you, kid. I know. She patted his arm absently. I love you too. The following weeks unfolded in a way that felt almost too good to be real. Adrian kept waiting for something to go wrong, for the other shoe to drop, for reality to reassert itself and remind him that he didn't get to have things like this. But it didn't happen. Elena started coming over more often, sometimes for dinner, sometimes just to watch a movie after Lily went to bed. She brought takeout and helped with dishes, and sat on the couch with her feet tucked under her like she belonged there. And slowly, the apartment started to feel less like a place Adrian was just surviving in, and more like somewhere he actually lived. At work, they kept up the charade, professional, distant. No one suspected anything, except Marcus. He cornered Adrian in the break room on a Wednesday afternoon, arms crossed, expression knowing. Okay, I've been patient, Marcus said, but you need to tell me what's going on. Adrian poured coffee, keeping his face neutral. What are you talking about? You've been different for weeks, happy, distracted. And I saw you smile at your phone yesterday during that budget meeting, which is insane because that meeting was torture. I don't know what you're talking about. Marcus leaned closer, lowering his voice. Is it someone from work? Adrian's hand jerked, spilling coffee on the counter. No. You're a terrible liar. I'm not lying. Then look me in the eye and tell me you're not seeing someone from this office. Adrian met his gaze, opened his mouth, and found he couldn't do it. Marcus's eyes widened. Holy shit, you are. Keep your voice down. Who is it? I'm not telling you that. Is it Rachel from accounting? No, wait, she's married. Is it? Marcus, drop it. Marcus studied him for a long moment, then his expression shifted. Wait, is it Elena? Adrian's entire body went cold. It is. Marcus's voice was barely a whisper now. You're dating Elena. I'm not. Don't lie to me. I've seen the way you look at each other when you think no one's watching. Adrian grabbed his coffee and walked toward the door. Marcus followed. Adrian, wait, I'm not going to say anything. Adrian stopped, turned. You can't tell anyone. I won't, I swear. I'm serious, Marcus. If this gets out, I know. I get it. Marcus's expression softened. Look, I'm happy for you, really, but you need to be careful. If the wrong person finds out, it could get messy. I know. Does HR know? Not yet. We're planning to tell them, eventually. Marcus nodded slowly. Okay, just be smart about it, yeah? I'm trying. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. For what it's worth, I think you two make sense. She's been different lately, too. Less intense. More human. Adrian couldn't help but smile. Don't let her hear you say that. I'm not suicidal. That evening, Adrian told Elena about the conversation. They were at her place, sitting on the couch with Chinese food spread out on the coffee table. Elena had her legs curled under her, chopsticks in hand, listening intently. So Marcus knows, she said when he finished. Yeah, but he won't tell anyone. You trust him? I do. Elena set down her chopsticks, wiping her hands on a napkin. We should probably tell HR soon, before someone else figures it out. Yeah. Are you ready for that? Adrian thought about it, about what it would mean. The questions, the scrutiny, the possibility that people would look at him differently. I don't know, he admitted, but I don't think we have a choice. Elena reached for his hand. We could wait, keep it quiet a little longer, or we could just rip the Band-Aid off. That's very brave of you, Adrian laughed. I'm terrified. Me too. Elena squeezed his hand. But we'll do it together. Okay. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the decision settling between them. Then Elena's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, frowned. It's my mother. I should... Take it, Adrian said. Elena stood, walked to the window, and answered. Hi, Mom. Adrian couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but he could tell from Elena's body language that it wasn't going well. Her shoulders tensed. Her free hand came up to rub her temple. No, I can't this weekend. I have plans. A pause. It's not work. I'm seeing someone. Adrian's stomach dropped. Elena's mother's voice rose loud enough that Adrian could hear it from across the room, sharp and disapproving. Yes, Mom, I'm aware of my priorities. No, it's not serious. Well, it might be. I don't know yet. Another pause. That's not fair. You don't even know him. Elena's jaw tightened. Because I knew you'd react like this. The conversation continued for another 5 minutes. Elena's responses getting shorter and more clipped until finally she said, I have to go. I'll call you later. And hung up. She stood there for a moment, staring out the window, her back to Adrian. You okay? He asked quietly. No. Elena turned and her eyes were bright with unshed tears. That was a disaster. What happened? My mother happened. Elena walked back to the couch, sat down heavily. She thinks I'm wasting my time, that I should be focused on my career, not a relationship, that I'm going to ruin everything I've built. Adrian's chest tightened. What did you tell her? That she's wrong, that this, she gestured between them, matters, but she doesn't believe me. Does her opinion matter? Elena looked at him, and there was something raw in her expression. It shouldn't, but it does. Adrian reached for her hand. What do you want? I want to prove her wrong. I want to show her that I can have both, a career and a life. Her voice broke slightly. But I don't know if I can. Elena, I've spent my entire life trying to be perfect, to be successful, to prove that I didn't need anyone. And now I'm sitting here terrified that wanting you means I'm failing somehow. Adrian pulled her close, and Elena buried her face in his shoulder. You're not failing, he said quietly. You're just human. Elena laughed, but it came out more like a sob. I don't know how to be human and successful at the same time. Then we figure it out together. They sat like that for a long time, Elena's breathing eventually slowing, her body relaxing against his. I'm sorry, she said finally. For what? For falling apart. You didn't fall apart. You just had a hard conversation with your mother. Elena pulled back, wiped her eyes. This is why I don't date. I'm terrible at it. Adrian smiled. You're doing fine. I cried on you. So that's not very CEO-like. Good thing I'm not dating your CEO persona. Elena looked at him, and something in her expression softened. I don't deserve you. Yeah, you do. She kissed him then, soft and slow, and Adrian felt the tension in her body ease. When they pulled apart, Elena rested her forehead against his. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For staying. Adrian's throat tightened. I'm not going anywhere. The next morning, Adrian and Elena walked into HR together. The director, a woman named Patricia who'd been with the company for 15 years, looked up from her computer with raised eyebrows. "This is unexpected," Patricia said. "Should I be worried?" "No," Elena said, taking a seat. Adrian sat beside her. "We just need to disclose something." Patricia folded her hands on her desk. "I'm listening." "Adrian and I are in a relationship," Elena said, her voice steady. "We wanted to make sure it's documented properly. Make sure there are no conflicts of interest." Patricia's eyebrows climbed higher. "How long has this been going on?" "About a month," Adrian said. "And you're his direct supervisor?" "Yes." Patricia leaned back in her chair, processing. "Okay, well, I appreciate you coming forward. That's the right thing to do." "What happens now?" Elena asked. "We'll need to put some safeguards in place. Adrian probably shouldn't report directly to you anymore. We can shift his reporting line to someone else. Maybe Marcus or another senior analyst." Adrian nodded. "That's fine." Patricia made a note on her computer. "And we'll need to be clear that any promotions, raises, or performance reviews for Adrian go through multiple levels of approval, not just you." "Understood," Elena said. Patricia looked between them. "I have to ask, is this serious or is it just casual?" Elena glanced at Adrian and he saw the question in her eyes. He answered for both of them. "It's serious." "Okay." Patricia's expression softened slightly. "Then congratulations, I suppose. Just keep it professional at work. No one wants to see their boss making out in the break room." Elena's face went red. "That's not... We wouldn't..." Patricia smiled. "I'm kidding, mostly." They left HR 20 minutes later with a new reporting structure in place and a memo that would go out to the team by end of day. In the elevator, Elena exhaled slowly. "Well, that wasn't as bad as I thought," she said. "You were expecting worse?" "I was expecting her to tell us we couldn't date at all." Adrian's hand found hers. "Would you have stopped if she had?" Elena looked at him, her eyes serious. "No." The memo went out at 4 p.m. By 4:15, Adrian's phone was blowing up. Marcus sent 3 texts in rapid succession. Marcus. "What?" Marcus. "You told HR?" Marcus. "Dude, you're braver than I thought." Adrian responded to none of them. Instead, he focused on his work, tried to ignore the way people were looking at him across the office, tried not to notice the whispers. At 5:30, Elena appeared at his desk. "Conference room," she said quietly. "Now." Adrian followed her. Inside, she closed the door and leaned against it. "How bad is it?" she asked. "I've gotten about 20 messages." "Me too." Elena ran a hand through her hair. "Everyone's talking." "Did you expect them not to?" "No, but I hoped." She looked at him, and there was fear in her eyes. "What if this was a mistake?" "It wasn't." "How do you know?" Adrian crossed the room, took her face in his hands. "Because I'd rather have people talk than spend another day pretending I don't care about you." Elena's breath caught. "You care about me." "Yeah, Elena, I do." She kissed him, and for a moment the rest of the world disappeared. When they pulled apart, Elena was smiling. "Okay," she said. "We can do this." "Yeah, we can." That night, Adrian came home to find Lily at the kitchen table, working on homework. "How was your day?" he asked. "Good. How was yours?" Adrian set down his bag. "Interesting." Lily looked up. "What happened?" "I told people at work about Elena, about us dating." "Oh." Lily went back to her math worksheet. "Did they get mad?" "No, they were just surprised." "Why?" "Because she's my boss." Lily frowned. So it's complicated." "Everything's complicated when you're a grown-up." Adrian smiled. "Yeah, it is." Lily finished a problem, then looked up again. "Dad? Yeah? Are you happy?" Adrian sat down across from her. "Yeah, kiddo, I am." "Good." She pointed her pencil at him. "Then I don't care what anyone else thinks." Adrian's throat tightened. "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart. You just don't notice because you're busy being worried all the time." "I'm not always worried." Lily gave him a look. "Okay, maybe I am." "You should stop. It makes your face look weird." Adrian laughed despite himself. "I'll work on it." Over the next week, the office gossip died down. People got used to the idea. Life went back to normal, or as normal as it could be. Elena moved Adrian's reporting line to Marcus, which meant their interactions at work became less frequent, but also less fraught. They could be in meetings together without worrying about appearances. Outside of work, things deepened. Elena started keeping a toothbrush at Adrian's apartment. He had a drawer at her place. They fell into routines. Saturday mornings at the farmer's market, Sunday dinners with Lily, late-night phone calls when they couldn't sleep. It felt like building something real. And then, 5 weeks after they'd told HR, everything changed. Adrian was at his desk when his phone rang. An unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello? Is this Adrian Blake? Yes. Who's this? This is Lincoln Memorial Hospital. We have a Lily Blake here. She was brought in by ambulance about 20 minutes ago. Adrian's entire world stopped. What happened? She collapsed at school. The paramedics brought her in. She's stable, but we need you to come down right away. Adrian was already standing, grabbing his jacket. I'm on my way. He hung up, his hands shaking so badly he almost dropped the phone. Elena appeared at his desk. Adrian, what's wrong? It's Lily. She's in the hospital. Elena's face went pale. What happened? I don't know. I have to go. I'm coming with you. Elena, you don't have to set... I'm coming. They took a cab, Adrian's leg bouncing the entire ride, Elena's hand gripping his so tightly it hurt. At the hospital, a nurse led them to a room in the pediatric ward. Lily was in a bed, looking small and scared, an IV in her arm and monitors beeping softly beside her. Adrian's heart shattered. Dad? He crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her into his arms. I'm here, kiddo. I'm here. I don't feel good. I know it's okay. We're going to figure this out. A doctor appeared in the doorway, a young woman with kind eyes and a clipboard. Mr. Blake? Adrian turned, keeping one arm around Lily. Yeah. I'm Dr. Patel. Can we talk outside for a moment? Adrian looked at Lily, then at Elena. Elena stepped forward. I'll stay with her. Lily nodded, and Adrian followed the doctor into the hallway. Dr. Patel closed the door behind them. What happened? Adrian asked. Lily collapsed during recess. The school called 911 immediately. When she got here, we ran some tests. And? Her blood sugar was dangerously low. We've stabilized her, but we need to run more tests to figure out why it happened. Adrian's mind raced. What does that mean? It could be a number of things. Diabetes, a metabolic disorder, something else. We won't know until we get the full panel back. How long will that take? A few hours. Maybe overnight. We'd like to keep her for observation. Adrian nodded, numb. Okay, whatever you need to do. Dr. Patel put a hand on his shoulder. She's going to be okay, Mr. Blake. We're taking good care of her. Adrian went back into the room. Lily was talking to Elena, her voice small and tired. And then everything got dizzy, Lily was saying, and I sat down, and then I don't remember. Elena brushed hair back from Lily's forehead. You're very brave. I don't feel brave. Trust me, you are. Adrian sat on the edge of the bed, taking Lily's hand. They want to keep you overnight, he said gently, just to make sure you're okay. Lily's eyes filled with tears. I want to go home. I know, kiddo, but we need to let the doctors help you first. Will you stay? I'm not going anywhere. Lily looked at Elena. Will you stay too? Elena's eyes went bright. Yeah, I'll stay. They spent the night in the hospital room. Adrian in a chair beside the bed, Elena curled up on a small couch by the window. Nurses came and went, checking vitals, adjusting the IV. Lily slept fitfully, waking every hour or so, disoriented and scared. Every time Adrian was there. And every time Elena was awake too, watching from the couch, ready to help. By morning, the test results came back. Dr. Patel returned, pulling Adrian into the hallway again. It's type 1 diabetes, she said. Her pancreas isn't producing enough insulin. That's what caused the collapse. Adrian felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. Is it treatable? Yes. She'll need insulin injections, regular monitoring, dietary changes. It's going to be an adjustment, but with proper management, she can live a completely normal life. How do I... Adrian's voice broke. How do I take care of her? We'll teach you everything you need to know. There are classes, support groups, resources. You're not alone in this. Adrian nodded, trying to hold himself together. When he went back into the room, Lily was awake. What did the doctor say? She asked. Adrian sat beside her, took her hand. You have something called diabetes. It means your body needs a little extra help managing sugar. Am I going to die? No, kiddo, you're not going to die. But we're going to have to make some changes. You'll need medicine, and we'll have to check your blood sugar every day. Lily's lip trembled. Will it hurt? A little, but you're tough. You can handle it. Tears spilled down Lily's cheeks. I'm scared. Adrian pulled her close. I know, but I'm going to be with you every step of the way, I promise. Elena stood, crossing to the bed. We both will. Lily looked at her. Really? Really? Lily reached for Elena's hand, and Elena took it without hesitation. And in that moment, Adrian realized something. Elena wasn't just part of his life anymore. She was part of theirs. They were released from the hospital the next afternoon with a bag full of supplies, insulin, syringes, a glucose monitor, and a stack of pamphlets Adrian was supposed to read. He felt overwhelmed, terrified, completely out of his depth. But Elena was there. She helped him carry everything inside. She sat with Lily while Adrian read through the instructions. She made calls to set up appointments with specialists and diabetes educators. And when Lily had to do her first injection at home, and Adrian's hands were shaking too badly to do it, Elena stepped in. Can I try? She asked Lily gently. Lily nodded, scared but trusting. Elena's hands were steady. She talked Lily through every step, her voice calm and reassuring. When it was done, Lily looked up at her with wide eyes. That wasn't as bad as I thought. Elena smiled. See, you're tougher than you think. That night, after Lily was asleep, Adrian and Elena sat on the couch in the dim light of the living room. Thank you, Adrian said quietly. For what? For everything, for staying, for helping, for being here when I couldn't hold it together. Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. Where else would I be? Adrian's throat tightened. I don't know, but I'm glad you're here. Me too. They sat in silence for a while, the weight of the past 2 days settling over them. Then Elena spoke. Adrian? Yeah. I love you. Adrian's breath caught. He turned to look at her, and her eyes were clear and certain. I know it's soon, Elena continued, and I know everything's complicated, but I need you to know I love you, and I love Lily, and I'm not going anywhere. Adrian's vision blurred. I love you too. Elena smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. They kissed, slow and gentle, and Adrian felt something inside him finally settle. This was real. They were real. And whatever came next, they'd face it together. The weeks that followed Lily's diagnosis were harder than Adrian had anticipated. There were mornings when her blood sugar spiked and she felt nauseous and tired. There were nights when it dropped too low and Adrian had to wake her up to drink juice, her hands trembling, her face pale. There were moments when Lily cried because she was tired of the needles, tired of checking her levels, tired of being different from the other kids at school. And through all of it, Elena was there. She learned how to read the glucose monitor. She kept emergency snacks in her purse. She sat with Lily during the hard moments, holding her hand, telling her she was brave even when Lily insisted she wasn't. Adrian watched it happen, watched Elena integrate herself into their lives so completely that he couldn't remember what it had been like before her. One Saturday morning, 3 weeks after the hospital, Adrian woke to find the other side of the bed empty. He got up, pulled on a t-shirt, and followed the sound of voices to the kitchen. Elena and Lily were at the stove, making pancakes. Lily stood on a step stool, carefully pouring batter onto the griddle while Elena supervised, her hand resting lightly on Lily's shoulder. Not too much, Elena said. Remember, we want them round. I know. Lily's tongue stuck out in concentration. How's that? Perfect. Adrian leaned against the doorframe, watching them, his chest tight with something he couldn't quite name. Lily looked up and saw him. Dad, we're making breakfast. I can see that. Elena's teaching me. She said she can't cook, but she's actually pretty good at pancakes. Elena smiled. It's literally the only thing I know how to make. Still counts, Lily said. They ate together at the table, Lily chattering about a book she was reading, Elena listening with the same focused attention she gave to everything. After breakfast, Lily ran off to get dressed, leaving Adrian and Elena alone. Thank you, Adrian said quietly. Elena looked up from her coffee. For what? For being here. For all of this. You don't have to thank me. Yeah, I do. Adrian reached across the table, taking her hand. You didn't sign up for this. The diabetes, the needles, the middle of the night scares. You could have walked away. Elena's fingers tightened around his. Why would I walk away? Because it's a lot, and it's only going to get more complicated. Adrian, Elena's voice was firm. I love you, both of you. Complicated doesn't scare me. Adrian's throat tightened. I don't know what I did to deserve you. You showed up every day, even when it was hard. Elena's eyes were bright. That's more than most people do. Lily appeared in the doorway, backpack already on. Can we go to the park? Adrian glanced at Elena. You up for it? Always. They spent the afternoon at the park, Lily running around the playground while Adrian and Elena sat on a bench, watching. She's doing better, Elena said. Yeah, she's adjusting. So are you. Adrian looked at her. Am I? You're not as terrified as you were 2 weeks ago. He smiled despite himself. I'm still pretty terrified. But you're handling it. We're handling it. Adrian's hand found hers. I couldn't do this without you. Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. Good thing you don't have to. That evening, after they dropped Lily at a friend's house for a sleepover, Adrian and Elena went back to his apartment. They ordered pizza, opened a bottle of wine, and settled on the couch. Can I ask you something? Adrian said. Yeah. What happens next? With us, I mean. Elena set down her wine glass. What do you want to happen? I want this to keep going. I want you in my life, in our lives. I want that too. But, Elena hesitated. But I don't know what that looks like, long term. Adrian's stomach tightened. Are you having second thoughts? No, that's not what I mean. Elena turned to face him. I've never done this before. Built a life with someone. Thought about a future that includes another person. It's new for me. It's new for me too. But you've done it before with Lily's mother. Adrian shook his head. That was different. We were young, and it was a mess from the start. He gestured between them. This feels like something I actually want to build, not something I'm just trying to survive. Elena's eyes softened. What do you want to build? Adrian took a breath. I want mornings like this morning. I want you making pancakes with Lily. I want to come home and find you on my couch. I want to wake up next to you and not have to worry about when you're leaving. Adrian, I'm not asking you to move in tomorrow, he said quickly. I know that's too fast, but I need you to know that's where I'm headed. That's what I want. Elena was quiet for a long moment, her eyes searching his face. Then she said, very softly, I want that too. Adrian's breath caught. Yeah. Elena's hand found his. I want all of it. The pancakes, the couch, waking up next to you. I want to be part of this. Even though it's complicated? Especially because it's complicated. Elena smiled. I spent my whole life trying to keep things simple, controlled, and I was miserable. It's messy and unpredictable and sometimes terrifying, but it's also the best thing that's ever happened to me. Adrian pulled her close, kissed her like he was trying to memorize the feeling. When they pulled apart, Elena was smiling. So, she said, what do we do now? Now, Adrian said, we figure it out as we go. 2 months later, on a cold Saturday in November, Elena moved in. Not all at once. First it was a drawer, then a closet, then half the bathroom. By the time Adrian realized what was happening, her stuff was everywhere. Books on the shelf, shoes by the door, her favorite coffee mug in the cabinet. And it felt right. Lily was thrilled. She helped Elena unpack, claimed the right to organize her closet, and announced to anyone who would listen that her dad's girlfriend lived with them now. The adjustment wasn't seamless. There were growing pains, arguments about where things should go, disagreements about routines, moments when the apartment felt too small for 3 people. But they worked through it. Elena learned to give Adrian space when he was stressed. Adrian learned to ask for help instead of trying to do everything himself. Lily learned that having 2 adults around meant she couldn't play them against each other the way she sometimes tried. And slowly, the apartment stopped feeling like Adrian's place that Elena was crashing in and started feeling like theirs. At work, things shifted too. With Adrian no longer reporting to Elena, they could be more open. Not about the relationship, they still kept that professional, but about the fact that they respected each other, collaborated well, pushed each other to be better. The Harrington deal closed successfully. Elena hired the 3 new people she'd been planning for. The company grew. And through it all, Adrian realized something he'd never quite believed before. He deserved this. Not because he'd worked hard or sacrificed enough or proven himself worthy, just because. Because happiness wasn't something you earned. It was something you chose, something you built, piece by piece, with the people who mattered. On a Sunday afternoon in early December, Adrian came home from the grocery store to find Elena and Lily in the living room, decorating a Christmas tree. He stopped in the doorway, bag still in hand, and just watched. Lily was on a step stool, hanging ornaments, while Elena handed them to her one at a time. They were laughing about something, Lily's face bright with joy, Elena's expression soft and unguarded. This, Adrian thought, was what he'd been searching for all along. Not perfection, not a life without problems. Just this. People he loved, loving him back. A home that felt like more than just a place to sleep. Moments that mattered. "Dad, are you going to help or just stand there?" Lily called. Adrian smiled. "I'm coming." He set down the groceries and crossed the room, wrapping an arm around Elena's waist. She leaned into him. "You okay?" "Yeah," Adrian said. "I'm good." That night, after Lily was asleep, Adrian and Elena sat on the couch, the tree lights glowing softly in the corner. "I've been thinking," Elena said. "About what?" "About next steps." Adrian's pulse quickened. "What kind of next steps?" Elena turned to face him, her expression serious. "I want to make this official, not just living together. I want to build a real life with you." "With Lily." "We are building a real life." "I know, but I want more than that." Elena took a breath. "I want to be her stepmom. I want to be your wife. I want this to be permanent." Adrian's heart stopped. "Are you—" He couldn't quite get the words out. "Are you asking me to marry you?" Elena's cheeks flushed. "Maybe. Is that okay?" Adrian laughed, the sound coming out shaky and overwhelmed. "Yeah, that's more than okay." "So, is that a yes?" "That's a yes." Elena's face broke into the widest smile Adrian had ever seen. She kissed him, and Adrian felt something inside him finally let go. All the fear, all the doubt, all the years of just trying to survive. It was over. This was what came next. They told Lily the next morning. She was at the kitchen table, eating cereal, when Adrian and Elena sat down across from her. "We need to talk to you about something," Adrian said. Lily looked up, immediately suspicious. "Am I in trouble?" "No, the opposite, actually." "Then what?" Elena took a breath. "Your dad and I are getting married." Lily blinked, set down her spoon, looked between them. "Like, for real married?" "Yeah," Adrian said, "for real." Lily was quiet for a moment, processing. Then she said, very seriously, "Can I be in the wedding?" Elena laughed. "Of course you can." "And can I pick my dress?" "Within reason." "And can we have cake?" "Obviously," Lily grinned. "Okay, then I approve." Adrian pulled her into a hug. "I'm glad." "Me too." Lily looked at Elena. "Does this mean I can call you Mom?" Elena's eyes went bright. "Only if you want to." Lily considered this. "I'll think about it." "Fair enough." They were married 3 months later in a small ceremony at the courthouse with just a handful of people in attendance. Lily wore a purple dress she'd picked out herself. Elena wore something simple and elegant. Adrian wore a suit that actually fit. Marcus was there, grinning like an idiot. Mrs. Chen came with her cat's photos to show everyone. A few colleagues from work showed up to celebrate. It wasn't grand, it wasn't fancy, but it was theirs. When the officiant asked if they had rings, Adrian pulled out 2 simple gold bands. He'd bought them with money he'd been saving for months, stashing it away bit by bit until he had enough. Elena's eyes filled with tears when she saw them. "You didn't have to—" "I wanted to." They exchanged vows, nothing elaborate, just promises to show up, to be honest, to keep choosing each other even when it was hard. And when the officiant said, "You may kiss," Adrian pulled Elena close and kissed her like it was the first time and the thousandth time all at once. Lily cheered. Marcus whistled. Mrs. Chen dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. And Adrian thought, this is it. This is what happiness looks like. The reception was at a small restaurant nearby, the same one where they'd had their first date. They ate good food, drank too much wine, and listened to Marcus give a toast that was equal parts embarrassing and heartfelt. I've known Adrian for 3 years, Marcus said, raising his glass. And in all that time, I never saw him smile the way he does when he looks at Elena. She makes him better, happier, more human. And Lily, he looked at her. You're getting the best stepmom in the world. Trust me on that. Lily raised her juice box. I know. Everyone laughed. As the evening wore on, Adrian found himself standing by the window, watching the city lights, Elena's hand in his. You okay? She asked. Yeah, just thinking. About what? About how far we've come from that lunch with Harrington to this, Elena smiled. That feels like a lifetime ago. In some ways it was. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Do you regret it? Any of it? Not for a second. They stood there in comfortable silence, and Adrian realized something. For most of his life, he'd been running. From failure, from disappointment, from the possibility that he might not be enough. But standing here, with Elena beside him and Lily laughing with Marcus across the room, he finally stopped running. Because he'd found what he'd been searching for all along. Not a life without problems, not a world where everything was easy, just people who stayed, who showed up, who chose him even when things got complicated. And that was enough. More than enough. 6 months later, on a warm spring evening, Adrian came home from work to find Elena and Lily in the kitchen, attempting to make dinner. The apartment smelled like something was burning. Everything okay in here? He called. Lily appeared in the doorway, covered in flour. We're making lasagna. How's it going? Not great. Elena set off the smoke alarm twice. Elena's voice came from the kitchen. That was an exaggeration. It was not. Adrian laughed, setting down his bag. Need help? Desperately, Elena said. He rolled up his sleeves and joined them. They cooked together, chaotic and messy, with too many people in too small a space and at least one minor disaster involving cheese that melted where it wasn't supposed to. But eventually, they had something that resembled lasagna. They ate at the table, the three of them, talking about their days, making plans for the weekend, arguing about what movie to watch later. It was ordinary, unremarkable, and it was everything Adrian had ever wanted. After dinner, while Elena and Lily cleaned up, Adrian stepped out onto the small balcony. The city stretched out before him, millions of lights, millions of lives, all moving in their own directions. And somewhere in the middle of it all, he'd found this: a family, a home, a life worth living. The door opened behind him. Elena stepped out, wrapping her arms around his waist. What are you thinking about? She asked. Adrian covered her hands with his. How lucky I am. You worked for this. Maybe, but I also got lucky. With you. With all of it. Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she said, You know what I think? What? I think we both got lucky. I think we found each other when we needed it most. And we chose to stay even when it was hard. Adrian turned to face her. Yeah, we did. And we'll keep choosing each other, no matter what comes next. Deal. They kissed, soft and slow, and Adrian felt the same certainty he'd felt on their wedding day. This was right. This was real. This was home. Inside, Lily called out, Are you guys done being gross? The movie's starting. Elena laughed. We're coming. They went back inside, settled on the couch with Lily between them, and watched some animated movie about talking animals that Adrian barely paid attention to, because he was too busy noticing the way Lily leaned against Elena like it was the most natural thing in the world. The way Elena's hand rested on Lily's shoulder, protective and gentle. The way his daughter had started calling her mom without even thinking about it. This was his family. Messy, imperfect, built from scraps and second chances. But it was his. And as the movie played and the city hummed beyond the windows, Adrian realized something that had taken him a lifetime to understand. Love wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone willing to stay. Someone who chose you over and over, even when things got hard. It was about showing up. being honest, building something together, piece by piece, day by day. And maybe, if you were lucky, you found someone who saw all your broken parts and loved you anyway. Someone who made you believe that you deserved happiness, not because you'd earned it, but simply because you existed. Adrian had spent so many years convinced he had to do everything alone, convinced that asking for help was weakness, that needing someone meant failure. But he'd been wrong. Strength wasn't about standing alone. It was about letting people in, about trusting them to stay, about building a life with someone even when you were terrified it might fall apart. It was about choosing love, again and again, even when fear told you to run. The movie ended. Lily yawned, already half asleep. Elena carried her to bed, tucked her in, kissed her forehead. And Adrian stood in the doorway, watching, his heart so full it hurt. This, he thought, is what I almost missed. If he'd stayed afraid, if he'd kept pretending he didn't need anyone, if he'd let that moment at the Harrington lunch pass without saying anything, he would have missed all of this. The thought was terrifying, but it also made him grateful. Grateful for the risk he'd taken, for the moment he'd stopped running, for the choice he'd made to let someone in. Elena appeared beside him, slipping her hand into his. "You okay?" she whispered. "Yeah," Adrian said. "I'm perfect." And for the first time in his life, he actually meant it. They closed Lily's door softly and walked back to their room. The apartment was quiet now, the city outside settling into its nighttime rhythm. Elena changed into pajamas, climbed into bed. Adrian followed. She curled against him, her head on his chest, her breathing already starting to slow. "Adrian?" she murmured. "Yeah?" "I love you." "I love you too." She smiled against his shirt. "Good. Just wanted to make sure you knew." "I know." They lay there in the dark, and Adrian felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not because everything was perfect, not because there weren't still challenges ahead, but because he finally understood what he'd been searching for all along. Home wasn't a place. It wasn't four walls and a roof. It was people. The ones who stayed. The ones who chose you. The ones who made the hard days bearable and the good days extraordinary. It was waking up next to someone who knew all your flaws and loved you anyway. It was watching your daughter trust someone enough to call them mom. It was knowing that whatever came next, you wouldn't face it alone. Adrian closed his eyes, Elena's warmth against him, and let himself drift. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Lily's diabetes would still need managing. Work would still be demanding. Life would still be complicated. But he'd face it all with people who loved him, and that made all the difference. Because at the end of the day, that was what mattered. Not the grand gestures or the perfect moments, just showing up. Being present. Choosing each other over and over until choosing became as natural as breathing. That was love. Messy, imperfect, beautiful love. And Adrian Blake, single father, strategy analyst, man who'd spent most of his life just trying to survive, had finally found it. Not by accident, not by luck, but by being brave enough to let it in. And that, he thought as sleep finally pulled him under, was worth everything.